My question concerns the current situation in Ukraine. We all support your actions, support the special operation that is currently taking place there. And of course the most important question that, one way or another, each of us has been asking himself lately is why did this special operation begin? Couldn't it have been avoided? With our minds we understand and support your actions in every possible way, but our female heart is restless for relatives, for loved ones, for those who remained in Ukraine. We know that the civilian population is not suffering, but still, tell us, calm us down, what awaits us at the end of this path? How should the military operation in Ukraine end? Thanks.
I am very short, but still I have to start, as they say in such cases, from the center of the field. I said this at the beginning of the operation and spoke before this decision was made. A difficult decision, no doubt about it. What's the matter? The fact is that after the state unconstitutional coup in Ukraine, which was actively supported, unfortunately, by Western countries, well, there's no need to hide it, they don't hide it. They bluntly said that they had spent $5 billion on this, handed out hot pies, on the Maidan, and so on. And then instead of returning the situation, even if it got out of control, even if it is the so-called excess of the performer, there is such a legal concept, that is, planned, one thing, done, another. All the same, they could and should have brought the situation back into the political mainstream. Moreover, on the eve of this coup, 3 foreign ministers arrived in Kiev in 2014, signed an agreement with the current government and acted as guarantors of these agreements that the situation would develop in a political direction. No, nothing like that. They carried out a coup, supported those who carried out a coup, and then follow the well-known events related to the Crimea, the southeast of Ukraine, and the Donbass, where people did not support this coup. Crimea, as you know, made a decision, people came to a referendum and voted to return to the Russian Federation. And naturally, we could not but support this. Moreover, they were in danger from nationalists and neo-fascists. And now I will say that there is full confirmation that they were right then. And then, or almost in parallel, the events in the Donbass began. What did it lead to? People who began to resist such a development of events began to be persecuted, and the Kiev authorities began to conduct military operations on this territory. They conducted 2 large-scale punitive military operations with the use of heavy equipment and combat aircraft. They were beating right on Donetsk, right on the squares they were pounding from above, tanks, aircraft, and so on. Both of these military companies turned out to be failures. They were defeated. After that, the so-called Minsk agreements, or a set of measures, as it is officially called, emerged, which showed the way to a peaceful resolution of this conflict. We did everything in order to let the development of events follow exactly this course, in order to restore the territorial integrity of Ukraine and protect the interests of the people who live in these territories. And what did they demand? Elementary things. The right to speak in their native language, in this case, in Russian. To live within the framework of their traditions, their culture. There was nothing special, absolutely nothing special. No. They organized a blockade of these territories, disconnected them from the banking system, from food supplies, from payments of pensions and benefits, and so on. Only some handouts were thrown up, and then, in order to receive these benefits and pensions, it was necessary to pass the line of demarcation. Listen up. Do you know what I'm going to say now? Maybe it will sound harsh now, something that came to my mind, but nevertheless, the situation forces us to say such things. You can see for yourself when stray dogs attack people in one or another region, injure people, there are even fatal cases. This is a separate problem and local authorities should deal with it. And then we see when they start to poison these animals, kill them, Shoot them. Listen, but people in Donbass are not stray dogs. From 13 to 14,000 people have been killed over the years. More than 500 children have been killed or maimed. But what is especially intolerable is that the so-called civilized West prefers not to notice this. All these years. Listen, 8 years long, 8 years long. Moreover, recently the authorities in Kiev have begun to declare directly, publicly, that they are not going to fulfill these agreements. They talk about it from TV screens, on the internet, they speak publicly everywhere. I don't like it, we won't. At the same time, Russia continued to be accused of not fulfilling these agreements. Well, it's just some nonsense. Theater of the absurd. To the fact that white, they say black, and to black, they say white. Recently, it's even worse. Suddenly they started talking about the fact that they are going to. That is, they have been talking about this for a long time. But now they have begun to talk more and more actively about Ukraine being accepted into NATO. Do you understand what this could lead to? And it can still lead up to now. If it is a NATO country, then in accordance with the treaty of this organization, all other members of the alliance must support this country in the event of a military conflict. No one recognizes Crimea as Russian except you and me. They are conducting military operations in the Donbass. They will also go into the Crimea. And then we will have to fight with the entire NATO organization. What is this? Are the consequences clear or not? I think that they are clear to everyone. Now they are talking about acquiring nuclear status, that is, acquiring nuclear weapons. We cannot pass by such things. Moreover, we know how this so-called West behaves in relation to Russia. Firstly, Ukraine has had nuclear competencies since Soviet times. And as for the enrichment of nuclear materials, they will be able to organize this work. There are missile competencies. One Yuzmash is worth something, which created intercontinental range ballistic missile technology for the Soviet Union. They will build up and do it. And from across the ocean they will also help to do it. And then they will say that we do not recognize the nuclear status, that they did it themselves. They will put these complexes under control, and from this very second, the fate of Russia will be completely different. Because then, our strategic opponents do not even need to have intercontinental range ballistic missiles. Right here they will be held as on a nuclear aim, and that's it. Well, how can we get past all this? These are absolutely real threats. This is not some far-fetched nonsense. And our guys who are fighting there now are laying down their lives. They are fighting for our future, for the future of our children. This is a completely obvious thing. People who do not want to understand this, especially from among the current leadership, should understand that if they continue what they are doing, they question the future of Ukrainian statehood. And if that happens, it will be entirely on their conscience. And what is happening now? I have already talked about what goals we set for ourselves. The first is to protect the people who live in the Donbass. In what way? By demilitarization and denazification of Ukraine, giving it a neutral status. Why? Because if there is a neutral status, then they will not gather in NATO. And their constitution says that they are going to NATO. Do you understand? It was written into the constitution. What is denazification? I'm talking to my Western colleagues. What's the big deal? You also have radicals. Yes, we have. But we don't have radicals in the government. And everyone recognizes that there is. Yes, maybe we have some jerks who are running around with a swastika somewhere. But do we support this at the government level? Do we have thousands of people walking around the capitals with torches, either in Moscow or in our other regional capitals, with swastikas and torches, as in the 1930s in Germany? Do we have that? And there is and is supported. Do we support those who killed Russians, Jews, Poles during World War II? Do we make heroes out of them? And there they do. And what is happening now is very important. Look here. Foreign citizens were taken and held hostage, in Sums, in Kharkiv. Over 6,000 young people, students. They were driven to the railway station and are being held for the third day. Listen, they've been holding the guys there for the third day. We've informed everyone. We brought this to the current leadership of Ukraine. Yes, yes, of course, we will do everything now. I personally spoke with the leaders of the leading European countries. Yes, yes, we will influence now. They told the UN Secretary General, yes, we'll figure it out now. Nobody does anything. They treat even worse those people whom they consider their own citizens. They just directly cover themselves with them as a human shield. For example, now in Mariupol, it's happening right now as we're talking. The government called from Kiev. There they came out to our servicemen. They provide a corridor for citizens to exit. Of course, our people reacted immediately, right there. They even suspended the fighting, watched what was happening. They don't let anyone out. Do you understand what they are doing? They don't let anyone out. They cover themselves with a human shield. Who is it? Of course, neo-Nazis. And we also record the presence of militants from the Middle East, from some European countries. We hear their speech on the air. They use so-called jihad vehicles. They stuff a car with explosives and drive it to the troops. But nothing works out for them and it won't work out. Well, who are they if not neo-Nazis? And it is precisely by such actions that they destroy their country and their statehood. Therefore, one of our key requirements is demilitarization. That is, we are helping the residents of Donbass, seeking the neutral status of Ukraine, seeking the demilitarization of the country, because we must clearly understand what weapons, where they are, under what control. There are different options here. We are discussing them now. We are also discussing it with representatives of the Kiev government during the negotiation process in Belarus. Thanks to President Lukashenko for organizing this work and helping to conduct these negotiations. Our proposals are on the table of a group of negotiators from Kiev. We hope that they will respond positively to this.
My name is Yulia Shvidko, co-pilot of Aeroflot. Vladimir, hello. My question is about the current situation. The fact is that there are a lot of rumors about the declaration of martial law, about the call of volunteers, the call of reservists, and, among other things, that additional conscripts will be sent to Ukraine. Could you say for sure whether martial law will be declared and whether newly called conscripts will be sent to the territory of Ukraine?
A lot of what is happening, from what we are seeing now and what we are facing, these are, of course, ways of fighting Russia. By the way, the sanctions that are being imposed are akin to a declaration of war. But, thank God, it hasn't come to that yet. I think that our so-called partners still have an understanding of what this threatens for everyone, despite their reckless statements. For example, as was done by the British Foreign Secretary when she blurted out that NATO could be involved in the conflict. We had to immediately make a decision to bring our deterrent forces into a special duty mode. But the reaction followed. They said that nothing of the kind was meant. But no one pulled her back. A female minister of foreign affairs. No one has disavowed these statements. Well, at least something, someone on this score would tell us. For example, this is her personal opinion, don't pay attention, nobody's nothing. And what should we think about this? Well, what should we think about this? Of course, we took it as a signal. And they reacted accordingly. Now directly to your question about volunteers, conscripts, martial law, and so on. Martial law is imposed in the country in accordance with the law by presidential decree, and it must be confirmed by a decision of the Federation Council in the event of external aggression, including in specific areas of hostilities. But we don't have such a situation, and I hope we won't. This is the first. Second, as for the special situation, there are several options: martial law, special status. It is also introduced by decree and by decision of the Federation Council in case of large-scale internal threats. And there is another regime, the emergency regime, which, as a rule, is introduced regionally, but can also be introduced throughout the country in the event of man-made disasters, natural disasters, and so on. But, thank God, there is no such thing either. We do not plan to introduce any special provision on the territory of the Russian Federation. There is no such need today. As I have already said, we see that attempts are being made to shake up society. By the way, in confirmation of my words that we are dealing not just with radicals, but with neo-Nazis. We have people walking around and expressing their opinion about what they like or dislike about our actions in Ukraine. And there, in Ukraine itself, those who express the same positions as our representatives of, let's say, the liberal part of our society, we already have confirmation. There they are being grabbed on the street now and shot. Now our special services are picking up this information and then they will give it. They're just being shot. We have a part of our liberal intellectuals who walking the streets and protesting. And they're the same, exactly the same intellectuals, who at least says something about Russia, began to be shot without trial and investigation. Regarding martial law, I repeat once again, it is imposed in case of external aggression. I hope this will not happen, despite the irresponsible statements of some officials. Now we hear that it is necessary to make a no-fly zone over the territory of Ukraine. It is impossible to do this on the territory of Ukraine itself. It is possible only from the territory of some neighboring states. But any movement in this direction will be considered by us as participation in the armed conflict of the country from whose territory threats to our servicemen will be created. At the same moment, we will consider them as participants in a military conflict. Therefore, I hope there is an understanding of this and it will not come to that either. Only professional military personnel take part in this operation, officers and contractors. There are no conscripts, and we do not plan to do this, and we are not going to. I repeat once again, only men who voluntarily made a very responsible choice for themselves in life to defend their homeland take part in this operation. They perform this task with honor. And why exactly this is the case, why we have the right to say this, I formulated in the answer to the first question. The same applies to those who are called to the training camp. No, we do not plan to do this in relation to this category either. They are regularly called to the training camps, before and after they will be called, but we are not going to call on this category either, and they will not participate in this operation. We have enough forces and means to solve the tasks that we set ourselves with the forces of a professional army. By the way, I can tell you during the operation itself, I know there is a lot of speculation, though I don't have much time to get acquainted with it, but I am informed that there is a lot of talk about what is going on and how. All analysts see what's going on, so I won't tell you any secret here. It would be possible to act in different ways. It was possible to simply help the republics of Donbass right on the line of contact, at the front, as they say, and just to reinforce them with our Russian army. But in this case, bearing in mind the reckless support from the West of nationalists and radicals from that side, there would be endless support, material resources, ammunition, equipment, and so on. Therefore, our General Staff and the Ministry of Defense went the other way. The first thing they did was destroy the main military infrastructure, warehouses with weapons, ammunition, aviation, air defense systems. The elimination of air defense systems requires some time. You are peaceful people, but you are still related to aviation. They, air defense systems, need to be opened, then hit. Practically this work is completed. From here the requirement to close the sky. But the implementation of this requirement is associated with colossal and catastrophic consequences not only for Europe, but also for the whole world. I think that those who mark something there have an understanding of this. Therefore, we went this way, as it turned out, absolutely right. And our military personnel are working calmly, doing everything to ensure the safety of the civilian population. But, unfortunately, these bandits and neo-Nazis do not spare people. They even shoot their own military personnel who do not want to provide armed resistance. We also have such facts. Nationalists, followers of Bandera, neo-Nazis, there is no other way to call them, shoot their military personnel. There, nationalists, several dozen people, are embedded in almost every more or less significant part, and they act in such a cruel way. But, I repeat, we do not use any conscripts or those who are called up for training in camps, and we are not going to use anyone during this military operation. I assume that our army will solve all the tasks facing it. I don't doubt it for a second. The whole course of the operation speaks about this. It's going according to the plan, according to schedule. Everything is being done as planned by the General Staff. As for the volunteers and those young people who come to the military enlistment offices, we are grateful to them for this patriotic impulse and desire to support the country, to support the armed forces. The very fact that they come already matters. But their help is not required yet. I'm sure it won't be necessary. But, turning to the video cameras, I hope they will see and hear what I am saying now. Thank you.